Next, to officially launch our monograph today, I would like to invite YV Liu Chintong to give his opening speech.
Architect Abu Zarim Abu Bakar, PAM President, my friend Dr. Tan Lokman, Judge Yang Arif Lim, and also Dr. Haider. To all friends who are here, who gathered here, a very good morning to all of you. I checked my phone and found the date. On 24th of August, Dr. Tan texted me and said, "Can you launch this book?" I have already have 2 weeks of plan, fully planned, because there's a by-election in Johor, which is happening today. So I say, give me some time to think about it. After some consideration, I decided to add to some carbon footprint by driving up from JB this morning and then flying back to JB this afternoon and then coming back tomorrow for another meeting. I did so because I have great admiration for Lokman, but also perhaps we have many drinks, so that add to that. I met Dr. Tan in the 2010s, early 2010s, when he was working with the former mayor of Penang, Yu Tong Siang, on some of the projects and some competitions in Penang. I was then Member of Parliament for Bukit Bendera. But we did not reconnect for many years until 2019. One day in 2019, I rang up Yu Tong Siang and say, I want to do some competition in Johor. By then, I was, so those who do not know, I'm a political nomad. I was MP in Bukit Bendera, Penang, then I was MP for Kluang. I lost in Aitam in 2018. I am now the Member of Parliament for Iskandar Puteri. So from north to the southernmost tip. So I told Tong Siang, I said, I need to get someone to work with so that we can do some competitions for buildings in Johor. And he said, why don't we meet Lokman? I said, okay, good, let's meet. And that was in June 2019 when I was Deputy Defense Minister. Lokman said, hey, we couldn't find anyone for PAM dinner, to be guest of honor for PAM dinner. So I ended up speaking to architects at PAM dinner with 2 days' notice. And I was then Deputy Defense Minister. But over the years, since then, we meet very often, especially immediately after the lockdown. I don't know why we meet so often immediately after the lockdown, partly because I was jobless. So I had a lot of free time. I lost my job during the Sheraton move. And we had many discussions. One of which was, of course, I was asking Lokman to help to see whether we can repurpose the Wentworth building. So now, for those who are old enough in KL, you know what is the Wentworth building and where it is. Now it has a rocket sign on top. It's my party headquarters and also where my library is. We didn't get anywhere reconfiguring the building because not enough people believing in the vision. But through which we spent a lot of time thinking about the 5-kilometer stretch in Kuala Lumpur, from KLCC to Dataran. To many people, they don't realize it is actually very close. From KLCC, Bukit Bintang to Dataran, it is walkable, just that it's difficult to walk. But it is not far. But over the last 40 to 50 years, we have sprawled our city so much that we have forgotten that we had an inner city. So Lockmans has this theory. His idea, through his experience with Melbourne, his idea is that cities will change and reconfigure in 40 years' time. One generation. Or maybe 2 generations. I don't know how you call it. But in 40 years' time, city configure and reconfigures. And if the city can reconfigure, it will have a new lease of life. So we were thinking through how to reconfigure Kuala Lumpur. What happened in the last 40, 50 years? I was born in Kuala Lumpur, but raised in Subang Jaya. Subang Jaya was a plantation estate, and it became a great success as one of the largest, and indeed it was the largest singular developer planned city those days. Before that, there was no city that was at that scale, that was planned by developer, and everything was done by the developer. But because of that success, and together with a couple of trends in history, we have what we have now. One thing was because Malaysia discovered oil in the 70s, during the oil crisis. That brought a lot of wealth to the nation. And by 1981, there was a prime minister who first came into power in 1981 and decided in 2 months' time after he came into power to launch a dawn rate on the London Stock Exchange. The dawn rate helped the Malaysian government to nationalize or backdoor nationalization of the plantation interest. That was actually Margaret Thatcher's word, that Malaysia backdoor nationalized Guthrie and other plantation interests, that the oil money translated into ownership of plantation. But ownership of plantation transitioned to something else. It transitioned into turning plantation estates into housing estates at a massive scale. And therefore, in the last 40 years, we see the hollowing out of inner city Kuala Lumpur. We built the infrastructure in Kuala Lumpur inner city, but we don't stay in Kuala Lumpur. We brought into this idea that we have to live and work in different places, which is not necessarily the most climate-friendly policy. My father grew up in the cemetery area next to Jalan Dewan Bahasa, and stay in a shop lot in a small room with 5 other young men in Jalan Petaling when he was in his 20s. And those days, actually there was no carbon footprint. You stay upstairs, you work downstairs. But I think this is where I shared Lokman's vision, that we should reconfigure and reimagine Kuala Lumpur inner city. That 5 to 6 kilometer stretch where we can reconsider how we develop the city and the nation, and provide for instance, create a lot more rental housing by repurposing old buildings as well as building new ones around that area in order to create rental housing for young Malaysians to live. We have bought into this idea again over the last 40 years, not just in Malaysia, but in most of the Anglo-Saxon countries, plus some European states as well, that housing is a financial asset. But if we look back, housing is not necessarily a financial asset. Of course, every time I broach this idea, there will be people telling me, oh, this idea of owning a house is ancient among Asians. But it's not true. 60 years ago, not many Malays are owning a house in this country. They own a kampung house, but it's not the same concept of financial housing ownership. And if you look back to the Chinese laborer, like where my parents were, they were staying in squatter houses, they were staying in shop lots houses, And this was actually the majority of people, how they live. So it is time for us to delink housing and financial assets to a certain extent. Especially we are facing a situation where 80% of the working population in this country are earning less than 5,500 ringgit per month. So we have a housing crisis. We of course have a pay and wage crisis. We also have multiple challenges, including climate challenges that we will have to deal with. And this is where I benefited a lot from many conversations with Lokman, most of which with alcohol. and I believe that given that he's so young, and let's say he lived until 100 years old, he still have 40 years to see the new 40-year cycle. So this book today that we are launching, Aki Center Plus, Making a Monograph, was a description and testimony of what Lokman has done over the last 40 years. We are looking to the next 40 years, and hopefully that next 40 years will coincide with the transformation of Kuala Lumpur, the transformation of our ideas about housing and financial assets, and the transformation of our understanding of climate and how we live. And I want to end with a quote which I read in the book. Now, in order to say good things about Lokman, I did actually read the book. Lee Chowa ended his piece by saying that no other individuals can match Dr. Tan Lokman's boundless energy and passion for architecture, his selfless contribution to the profession, and his zest for life. This book is a testament to this maverick. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed it.